All right, so we're back this time to talk about some miscellaneous random stuff that we just want to talk about some recent things that we've been watching. Recently, I just watched Glass Onion, which I did not put a part of my 2022, top 10, whatever, but I definitely think that that should be incorporated in my top 10. If not in my top 10, definitely an honorable mention because that definitely was a solid movie. I didn't quite like it as much as Knives Out, but I definitely really like that universe. I like that character. I like the mystery of it all. And yeah, it's just a really solid movie. I don't really have too many complaints about the movie, and the complaints that I do have are really just personal nuance things that I just have a problem with that aren't really that big of a deal. But yeah, definitely, I really hope that they continue to make um, movies within the Knives Out, Glass Onion world, and I hope that they continue to do the theatrical release to it because I'm glad that they gave this movie about a week to kind of have its run in theaters to make a little bit of money, and then put it out to streaming services. But yeah, I definitely really enjoy Glass Onion. You talked about it a little bit when we were talking about our top tens, but anything to add or anything more in depth that you want to talk about now that I've seen it?
Um, I mean, yeah, the whole theatrical window, like they only had it in theatrical release for 1 week, and it's just like they left so much money on the table because the theater that I went to, and this is anecdotal, but the one I went to, it was sold out at multiple showings. And the showing I did go to, like I found out that one of my coworkers was there and we didn't plan it or sit together. We both were just scrambling to get tickets to this showing.
Mhm.
And it's crazy to me that Netflix spent so much money on these movies and they're only giving them 1 week in theaters. And it's like after 1 week, it instantly popped up on Netflix. I'd be like, okay, I get it, whatever. It was 1 week leading up to the Netflix release. But it was like 1 week in November, and then mid-December, they release it on Netflix. And it's like, if you're not releasing it for another month, why not just let it stay in theaters for that month and make some money?
Mhm. I don't
And
know. I don't. Yeah, I honestly don't know what their argument would be because at that point they're just a studio. They just turn into a legitimate movie studio if they're just turning out theatrical released movies, which I can see their
but
argument as to why they wouldn't want to do that. But if they're trying to make money, it doesn't quite make sense to me.
yeah, because I mean, like, let's see. They paid 240 million for the rights to two sequels, plus another 40 million to produce Glass Onions. So they paid 450 million just so they could have the rights to like Knives Out 2 and 3. And
Mhm.
then they spent 40 million on this film. So that's nearly $500 million. And it's like in 1 week, it made, what was it, like 13 million just in the
Mhm.
1 week it was in theaters. So it's like, just leave it in theaters, make that money. And yeah, you're right. At that point, they're just a studio. But what's wrong with being a studio? Like Disney's whole motto has become, you know, if we are going to focus on streaming, but everything that we release in theaters will be on our platform. And if that's the competition, then that's what you do. You make films that are good enough to be in theaters, to perform in theaters, and then when they're done with their theatrical release, you put them on your platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate a little bit and try and think of reasons as to why they would want to not do that, but there's really not too many reasons. I mean, other than them just wanting to not want their patrons to pay just the normal amount the one time. Like they don't want to pay the $8.99 or $10 for the one movie ticket. and they versus paying the $10 per month is for the subscription to their service. I don't know if
Yeah, I could
that's
tell that you don't have your own Netflix subscription because $10, they haven't had those prices in years.
oh, I for sure don't. Yeah, no, I only have Shutter and I pay the yearly thing, so it's like $52. It's not even anything crazy, but yeah, I legitimately don't have any streaming service. I don't have Netflix, don't have Disney, don't have Hulu. I have access to all everything, but I don't pay for anything. And it's a shame because all of the streaming services are really trying to crack down on that. They're trying to crack down on the password sharing and the ads and all that stuff. And it's just like, okay, if you're going to do that, then I'm not even going to access it in the way that I did anymore. And now I'm just going to go back to my physical media collection because I'm not paying a month to month fee for a library of movies that A, I don't even know if I want to watch, or B, I already have half of. So it's just dumb. So yeah, I don't know. Netflix and all the streaming services are kind of in like a weird place right now. And they, I think, are going to be in a weird place for the next couple of years because they just don't have it figured out. They don't have
Well,
what they want to do figured out as far as, like we were just talking about, if they want to be a movie studio, if they legit just want to be a streaming service, if they just want to collect different, sequel titles and shit like that. Like they just don't know what they want to do at all.
well, the streaming service, like the bubble's about to burst because they all everyone has thought, okay, streaming is the way of the future, so we need to go all in on this. And what they're all learning is streaming is more of a fad than anything because while it's never going to go away, like it's not a sustainable business model. Like Netflix has rarely turned a profit, if ever. I've heard reports say that Netflix has never turned a profit, and I've heard other reports say, well, technically they have made a profit in certain years. So I don't even really know what to believe. It all comes down to Hollywood accounting of whether you want to show you've made money or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like at this point, they're learning the hard way. It's like for you to make content that people desperately want, you need to spend money on it. And the money you're spending on it, you're not going to make back from subscriptions because for whatever reason, every studio has forgotten that the best way to make movies and make money is just to take a chance on artists. Let the artist make the artistic decisions. Every studio wants to boil everything down to corporate decisions, algorithms, and just formulaic movies so that they can guarantee success. But no, people don't want that shit, you know? Like Marvel is the exception to the rule. Marvel is formulaic. Marvel is becoming generic because they produce so much of their own content by following a formula. They're making their own content generic, you know? Like if
But
you
it's
make
tough
the same
because
movie 50 times, it becomes generic. And it's like I'm still enjoying Marvel at this point in time,
mhm.
but we did just have a phase of the MCU where I thought a majority of the films were weaker than the shows, and the shows were kind of all over the place.
True. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just all just kind of depends on obviously what you do with the budget that you're given. And I don't know. It's tough for
But
me.
they're giving budgets to people who've either made commercials, never made movies at all, or people like fucking Brett Ratner who just fail over and over and over and make
See, you just
critical
said it right
flops.
there. But you can't have it both ways. You can't take a chance on new artists, but also avoid all those people that you just listed. It's just like,
Well, no, no,
okay,
no. Okay, Brett Ratner is not like taking a chance. He's made a bunch of movies and failed over and over. But I'm just saying, like if you have someone who's never made a feature film, he's only done like commercials and music videos, cool. Give him like a $20 million budget and see what they can do. You know? Like,
But okay, let's say for the sake of whatever that you're a movie executive and we have $50 million on the line. It's not your $50 million, but it's $50 million on the line. And you have a script that follows the Marvel cinematic formula to a T and you know is going to make money, or you can take a chance on a new artist with a new scripts, with a new kind of concept of a story that's never been done before, but it's definitely going to be a risk. And there's $50 million on the line, and that basically means that your job is on the line if you fuck up. Like, are you
but
going
see,
to go with the generic Marvel? Like, it's tough for me to be like these evil movie executives are making these dumb decisions because they're stupid. It's just like, no, they're probably making decisions that make sense to them, but artistically, of course, from the outside looking in, it's just like, oh my God, they're following the same formula again. Like it just doesn't make sense. But when there's this much money on the line,
all right,
tough
but see,
to.
you're highlighting my point. Like $50 million is now like a mid-budget film, you know? Like Marvel movies are $200 million now. So if you have a film that follows the Marvel formula to a T and you're only spending $50 million on it and you know it's going to make money, then yeah, that's a no-brainer. But that's not the world we live in. These massive blockbusters are 100 million to $250 million budget films. And
Mhm,
it's one of the reasons that I was actively rooting against Avatar because the fact that Avatar has already made $1 billion on a budget of 370 million, and that's a conservative estimate because they're spending that money on technology that they're already using to film other sequels. Like that movie doing well means that executives are going to be like, oh, Avatar did well because certain scenes are in 44 frames per second. So we need to redefine how we shoot films. You get right there, director who has never even thought about shooting in 44 frames per second. We're only going to fund your film if you shoot your entire film in 44 frames per second. And that guy's just gonna be like, well, James Cameron had 10 fucking years to figure this out. You want me to figure it out right now on the spot? Like, they're gonna take the wrong lessons. They're gonna shove money into CGI messes that aren't gonna work out when they really need to go back to like the old system of just having an artist come up with a good, solid movie that's in the $20 million range and send it out. Violent Night, it was only $20 million. It made $13 million domestically in its opening weekend, made more money overseas, and is making a ton of money on its paid rental window because it's already in like premium rental.
mhm.
And I contributed to that. I went to see it in theaters along with two other people. And then on Christmas Day, I spent $25 buying it on Amazon so that me and my family could watch it on Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there is still value to, all that. It's tough for when you're making the decisions to not see their point of view. Like, I don't know,
It's not that I
when
don't
millions
see
of
their
dollars are on the line, it's tough to be like, all right, let's give this person a chance, like, I don't know.
it's not that I don't see their point of view, it's that they're creating their own problem. Like the problem is, well, we're spending $200 million, we can't take a risk. And it's like, okay, so don't spend $200 million. Like instead of
Mhm.
spending $200 million on one project, like spend $5 million on 10 different horror movies. One of them's gonna fucking hit and hit big. Like Smile was originally supposed to go straight to streaming and had a reported budget of only 20 mil or like 17 million, not even 20. And
Mhm.
that movie ended up making over 200 million, you know? Like Blumhouse has proven that low budget horror movies can just hit big, you know? They financed Get Out for like what was it, 5 million, 10 million? It was something. It was small. It was a low budget film, like low budget by Hollywood standards, not by indie standards. And that movie made 250 million.
Hmm.
So it's just like, if you want to do that, just take 200 million, spend 50 million of it on several low budget horror projects because people show up for horror. Then spend a few like 50 million on multiple drama Oscar bait projects to get like the critical acclaim. And guess what? You still have $100 million to spend, so make two mid-budget action films. Like the most expensive John Wick film was $70 million, and that was their third one after they built up and up and up. Bullet Train and Violent Night were made by spin-off studios that started the John Wick franchise, and both of them were below $50 million. So you just take that $200 million that you're going to waste on a franchise starter and a cinematic universe starter and make like 25 other movies. Like I don't even see it as a risk because the numbers back me up on this one. But instead of making like taking the money and spending it on artists who are going to make artistic decisions, they blow it all on what's going to start the next cinematic universe. And
Hmm.
it's like, and the crazy thing is, I know a few people who are on the same page as me who are just like, yeah, I follow the MCU. I'm not going to follow another cinematic universe. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. It's like, if I'm following the MCU, I do not want to follow Star Wars. I do not want the DC EU to take off. I've been saying for a while, I wish DC would just make one-off movies because their one-off movies are awesome. And I don't want to have to keep up with 10 different cinematic universes. You know, it's cool for one of them, but to try and keep track of multiple, fuck that.
Right. Well, I think within a trilogy or within a sequel, that's fine. But yeah, definitely if
Right.
there's multiple shows or multiple movies involved, then yeah, it just becomes too much. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
John Wick's totally cool to follow because over the course of 7 years, or 8 years, we're only getting four films. But if they follow the MCU formula of making 3 to 4 films a year and TV shows, man, I do not have that much spare time. And that's just me right now. My fiance, she wants to have kids. Once I have kids, there's no way in hell I can follow even one universe.
mm,
Like my bosses have 3 kids and they can barely keep up with the MCU and don't have time to watch other movies.
yeah. And even I don't know, like to your point about why don't they just make 10 horror movies and stuff like that? I mean, Shudder, I feel like, is probably the weakest of the streaming services, and that's exactly what they do. So maybe they're all looking at Shudder and being like, well, if we just focus on this genre and just do this and turn out shitty horror movies, people aren't going to show up just because it's horror. It needs to also be
But
good.
see, that's not true because Shudder doesn't release their films in theater, and theatrical horror movies do well. Horror audiences show up,
Mm.
and like, period. They just do.
So I wonder what Shudder's holdup is for not being theatrical, or yeah, just having Shutter
I'm not sure if
exclusives.
you're aware of this, but Shudder is owned by AMC, and AMC making all that advertisement money from The Walking Dead and fucking Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, all that shit.
Yeah,
And honestly, like you said, Shudder's the only subscription service you pay for.
it is true, but I feel like I'm in a small community of actual film lovers or not people that are a part of the mass sheep following of Netflix or Disney Plus and all that shit because I just don't know how people can do it at this point. Like at this point, there are way too many streaming services to pay for everything. And it's just like when you randomly want to watch something that's not on anything that you have, it's just like you either have to buy something or spend hours searching for something that is not even really something that you want to watch, or you turn on something that you've seen before just because you're tired of looking. It's just like I'm tired of that. I'm just like I'd rather just I don't know, not have to submit to that form of media intake. And I think a lot of people are coming around to that because
And
yeah, Netflix is struggling, especially because they're moving to advertising now, which never, I think, their CEO said once upon a time that they were never going to go this way, but of course now they're going this way, and it's just like Jesus, like what is the difference now between Netflix and a regular cable? Like there really is none, and cable, if you think about it, was the smarter version of what we're doing now. It had literally all of the channels on cable, and you just paid for that, and you just switched. The only difference is feel like is if you could on cable just go to the platform that you want to go to and pick out wherever you want to watch at that time. It's not necessarily based off of like a time slot that something automatically plays. But I don't know. There needs to be a new way that we do this, and I think it's on the horizon. It's just there hasn't been a payment plan agreement set in place, so that's just not why it's implemented yet. But
well, the what they need to do, like the one subscription service that I currently pay for is Disney Plus. I have access to HBO because it came with my phone plan, but I despise AT&T and want to end that as soon as possible. And at that point, I'll lose HBO, but I don't care. But the reason I pay for Disney is because they are creating content that I want to see. It's not every single week something that I want to see is coming out. I'm fine with there being weeks where they don't release something new because I have a physical media collection. But even if I didn't, what people are going through right now, what you're describing, is they're paralyzed by decision. Like there's too much for them to decide on something. They just sit there scrolling for hours. They need to, like, Netflix needs to stop just pumping out content that is mediocre to bad. You know, like Glass Onion is the only movie that Netflix made this year that was good. I can't think of anything else that Netflix produced this year that was good or worth seeing. Can you?
Netflix.
Yeah, see that right there. Even if you come up with something, it wasn't good enough for you to be like, oh my God, this right here. Like a few years back, they came like Netflix kind of put a focus on horror. And in one year they produced The Babysitter, they produced Little Evil, which was made by the creators of Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and it's pretty much like a comedic take on The Omen. And there was one other horror movie they made that was really good, and I can't recall it at the time, but I instantly recalled two out of the three. You know, like if you just make a couple of quality things, like imagine if Netflix had produced everything everywhere all at once. Would it have taken you a second to even think of that, or would you have instantly been like, no, they made this incredible film?
No,
You
yeah,
know,
right.
instead of making like Netflix did this thing last year and this year where they released one new movie a week. Okay, I'm not gonna watch one new movie a week if they're all shitty. I'll watch a movie called Choose or Die, which I'd honestly forgot about until I was scrolling through my reviews earlier today on Letterboxd, and I came across that one, and my review was, "Don't waste your time on this shit," or something to that effect. And it's just like, rather than create like releasing 52 films and dozens of shows that are mediocre that no one gives a shit about, how about you just make, you know, one solid movie a month? If they released 12 movies a year, they'd already be beating studios like Warner Brothers, who only produced two movies this year. Like, if you make 12 solid movies, let's say even only six of them are great and the other six are just solid, that right there would be enough to make me pay for that, you know? But instead, they're just focused on quantity over quality. And because of that, everything just gets lost in the shuffle. Even good stuff just gets buried in the algorithm and you have to search for it.
Hmm.
And I don't understand why everyone is jumping on that bandwagon of quantity, 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 quantity. It's like no one wants quantity, they want quality.
Right.
Even prior to streaming services, like there were maybe five, six, seven must-see films every year, and everyone was happy. Why are you trying to release a new film every week? You know, what are you, the Hallmark Channel? And the result of that is I straight up refuse to watch any Netflix show. Miniseries, I'll still give a chance to, but if it's a show, I will not even consider giving it a chance because I do not trust their brand. I do not trust them to finish what they started. And their movies have become so mediocre and so bad that if I see Netflix original film and no one's recommended it to me, I won't watch it either. So it's like the only time I turn on Netflix is when I hear that they're adding a movie that it's supposed to be good and I haven't seen, but I go to the theater all the time. So even that's rare. Like Netflix is a streaming service that I have access to and never utilize. And the only reason I have access to it is because my mom pays for it. And she's already said once Stranger Things is over, she's canceling Netflix. So the minute Stranger Things season five is done, I'm done with Netflix. I'm not going to pay for that shit.
Yeah.
And with password sharing being cracked down on, no one's going to share their password with me. So it's just like Netflix is on borrowed time with me.
Yeah. And yeah, it's probably like that with a lot of people because I feel like they think that password sharing is gonna uptick their profits, but I just, from an outsider looking in, I don't see how that's possible. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's tough because Netflix, I feel like, has a lot of multiple hard decisions to make on top of movies because it's not just the movies, it's the TV shows, it's the reality shows, it's a lot of that shit that have really solid audiences that we're not even really a part of, but also are really huge to take into account because Wednesday, a show you did not watch, is the number one show on Netflix. And culturally, I'm not even shitting you, on social media, Wednesday took over. There's a
Oh, I
Wednesday
believe you.
dance, there's a Wednesday cosplay. Wednesday is everywhere. And it's not even that, like, even before then with Stranger Things, it's just like those songs that were in Stranger Things were everywhere, everywhere. Stranger Things is very much still on top of things. So it's just like, again, maybe Wednesday isn't replacing Stranger Things, but Netflix has more on their plate than just movies. They have shows. It's just that they have a lot going on. So a part of me wants to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. And I think it's a little shitty of you to not give any of their shows a chance. I do see where you're coming from though, because I did get really badly burned with that exact thing that happened with the show. I don't even remember what the show was called. It was a superhero show. It was kind of like The Boys. I'll have to think of it.
Oh, Jupiter
Oh yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. That's the exact show. I like the show. It was a solid show. It was their attempt to try to match The Boys or Invincible or anything like that, that anti-superhero type, asking questions that the normal DC and Marvel heroes aren't asking type of thing. But it just got canceled after the first season because it just didn't bring on enough new people to the subscription. And it's just like, Jesus, this really
But
sucks.
see, that's my whole thing. Like at this point, like if a show is good, like if Wednesday is really that good and it really does, and they stick with it and they complete it, then fine, maybe I check it out at that point. But
Mhm.
at this point, I just don't trust them to finish anything. And their brand recognition has been destroyed. Like, I don't see them as a sign of quality. I
But to
see
be
the Netflix,
fair, switching to the advertising and commercial stuff will give attention to the shows that are being more viewed. So those TV shows that are getting canceled aren't going to get canceled anymore now if you actually watch them because they're going to get ad revenue. So I mean, if they
but
kept
see,
that they didn't
and
have the commercials or anything, if you kept doing what you're doing would make sense, but now it really doesn't make sense because they have ads.
but I would never like my mom had Hulu and shared her Hulu account with me, and I never used it because she had the cheap version that showed ads. And for me, I will not watch something with ads. I think it ruins the momentum of both shows and films. So I just straight up won't even use it. So if I were to pay for Netflix, it would be for the ad-free version. So that's not a valid argument for me. Like
But it
I just
still
if
is though, because those shows will still get the attention that and money that they deserve if you're watching it. Whether or not you're
but
watching
that's
the
what I'm
ads or not, it's at this point, Netflix has changed their whole algorithm to match the exact thing that you're bitching about, and yet you're still saying, I don't want to participate. They have fixed the
because they
problem.
because they've damaged their brand. It's too little, too late, in my opinion. And also, you're talking about it being shitty of me, dude. Their Netflix is part of the problem. Everyone is producing so much content. Like I just found out last week that there's a National Treasure show on Disney Plus. Like
Mhm.
I had no idea, and I'm excited to see it. I want to sit down and watch it. But like National Treasure got its own show, and I didn't even know that existed. Like, there's just too much content to consume now. So I'm at a point now where it's like you can call it shitty if you want, but the way I see it, there's too much to watch, and all I'm doing is saying, okay, I don't like this, so this is going to be how I filter out some content. Like I'm no longer paralyzed by choice because I'm going, okay, here's my line in the sand. Y'all fucked up too much. I'm done with your brand. Right there, that's 50 options taken off my plate.
Mhm.
Like that's just how I see it. I don't even see it as like I'm missing out or I'm sacrificing anything. What am I sacrificing? That I can't talk to two or three people about a show? Whatever. Like, and even before that, dude, like I've always loved movies and just thought some shows were good, some were okay. There's a few great ones, but I've always just watched more movies than shows. I just shows are a huge time commitment. Shows rarely, rarely finish well. They either stay on too long, like they overextend themselves, and the quality just declines to the point where I stop watching and don't give a shit about it, or they get canceled before they have a chance to finish the show. It's so rare that a show has a good run and stops when it should. And that's not a Netflix thing. That's an all of television thing. And for me, I rarely get into shows. I would just prefer a movie. A movie is thought out, it is made, it has a start, middle, and end.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. It's just not quite as in depth, and Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just I feel like you're missing out on a lot of stuff. I mean, I get what you're saying that there's so much now to consume, but mm, I don't. It's just I feel like you're waiting for it to be confirmed that it's good for you for Netflix, and you have that such high quality standard, like, but yet you also watch some of the most dumbest things ever, you know, on your path to going to sleep or shit like that. So it's just like, what's the difference? Like, why can't you just throw on a Netflix show before you go to sleep and it'd be the same thing? Why do you have such a high standard for Netflix shows that you don't have for a normal horror movie?
Because a normal horror movie requires 90 minutes of commitment, whereas a Netflix show could
No
require
one is
a
asking you to
hundred.
marry the show. No one's asking you to get down on one knee and fully commit to. If you don't like the show, you don't have to watch it.
You're right, but I don't want to start a story and not finish it. Like, I don't like that. When I do watch a show and its quality is so bad that I stop watching it, it's not like I'm just like, yeah, okay, I'm done. I'm just like annoyed that it is that bad. And I'm annoyed that I have to stop it. And it's just like, why would I want to engage with something that's going to annoy me? And the answer is I wouldn't. I could just watch a movie.
That's so dumb though, because like
In
I
your
haven't
opinion,
I have not finished The Walking Dead, but I don't regret watching the first season of The Walking Dead because that was some of the greatest television in history. Did it not know when to end and it's very dumb now? Absolutely. But I do not regret watching The Walking Dead. I do not
it's not
regret
about,
watching the Westworld. The first season of the Westworld was fucking amazing television, but the seasons after that were shitty and they absolutely did not know when to end.
but
So,
see,
but
you're
again,
putting your baggage on me because I never said regret. It's not regret. I don't regret watching The Walking Dead. I'm annoyed that The Walking Dead didn't end earlier. I'm annoyed that it didn't make obvious decisions that would have made it better. I'm annoyed that its quality just declined to the point where I didn't care about the show anymore.
but you
Those
don't
things
regret
on
watching it.
exactly. I don't regret watching it.
So
It's not
there
about
are
regret. It's
things
about,
out there right now that you want to watch that you won't regret watching, but because it doesn't end properly, you're not going to start.
but see, again, you're putting your baggage on, like you're applying your worldview to me. I don't want to watch Wednesday because I saw Netflix original series. And when I see that now, I automatically go, I want no part of that. Like I'm not joking with you, Merrick. It's not like I'm sitting here like, shit, I wish I'd never said that because I secretly want to watch this show, but because I said this, people will judge me if I go back on my word. No, fuck that. If I change my mind, I change my mind. But that hasn't happened yet. When Wednesday popped up, you and four other people have recommended Wednesday to me. And my response to all of y'all has been like, nah, I'm not interested. And you know why I said that? Because I'm not interested. The second I see Netflix original series, that brand has been destroyed to the degree that the second I see that, I'm just not interested at all. I have no desire to watch it. And it's not like I'm drawing a line in the sand and refusing. Because when Netflix decided they were going to do a live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, I did watch that because I absolutely love that anime. It is my favorite anime of all time. It's what exposed me and got me interested in anime to begin with. Like, I was just like, fuck yeah, let's watch it. Let's give it a chance. And if Netflix makes something else that I have that feeling towards, I'm not going to be like, well, no, I've said on the podcast I don't watch Netflix shows. No, fuck that.